can people learn how to break a system, cheat a system? And that to me was really, really interesting. But if we think about it, we're not all murderers, but I bet you there are a lot of people listening and watching this that will have their top 10 shows on Netflix will be how to be a murderer. When I was in the police, in the high-tech crime unit, the dark web came out. People started to use it, play with it. VPNs, cryptocurrencies. We saw a shift. I remember a laptop coming in, covered in blood inside the bag. The officer in charge said, "Can you find the evidence on this computer?" I never knew where I was going to go 20 odd years ago. I had no idea.
AI is being used in the mass for the most basic thing. And people are just automating execution.
The inclusion of AI now is changing so much, but I think that for a positive thing as well. I've created a channel where I just do silly things. I originally started with videos of my cat trying to kill me with a death stare.
The deep fake attack in Hong Kong where the bank employee was scammed to transfer $25 million.
I love that one. That's my favorite headline last year. I want friends like that. Technological change than when the World Wide Web came out and flipped every industry in its head in the early 90s. I learned some really cool things, and that forensic side is really the basis now of so much criminal data.
Hi guys, I'm really excited about today's podcast for the Hacking Games. So today I'm joined by Jake Moore, TV celebrity, former police officer. I love Jake because he makes the complexity of cybersecurity super accessible to everyone. And as we know, cybersecurity threats are no longer in the niche, but they are firmly in the mass. Now, you will have seen Jake across a whole load of TV and print and radio media, and he is the ultimate experimenter. He's continuously testing and checking boundaries and seeing what the latest tools are that you could be defrauded from, and then explaining it to all of us. He's got a beautiful way of looking into the in-depth technicalities and then helping us all absorb it at a very human level. Jake's story is a great one, 14 years in the police force and then 7 years in the private sector. But I think there was an interesting moment where effectively Jake was saved. He was saved by his guardian angel, and his guardian angel was his mum, who stopped him plunging into the depths of real-world crime. Jake, welcome to the Hacking Games.
Thank
It's
you.
so awesome to have you here. So if it wasn't for your mum, you would be behind bars, locked up. You would be, waiting to be rescued.
Or maybe, yeah. That's because she asked me many years ago, "What are you going to do with your life?" And I said, "I have no idea. I was just finishing university." And she said, "Well, why don't you just tell me what you love?" And I said, "Well, I love bank robbery. I've always loved crime, genuinely fascinated with all things crime." And she said, "Well, you can't be a bank robber, but why don't you go and join the police force?" And I went, "Oh my gosh, you know what? That's not a bad idea." And a few months later, I did. I joined the police force down in Dorset, which is where I live. And it wasn't long before I joined this very new high-tech crime unit.
So when you started in the police force, were you doing street work?
No, I started as an analyst looking into statistics of crime because my degree was in statistics. I couldn't do computer science like it is now over 20 years ago. So I loved the analytical side of anything. But my idea of, say, analysing crime data, at least I would be fascinated by that data. I could analyse any data, but at least I want to be excited by it. And that was my mum really pointing towards that aspect because, the whole idea of if you enjoy it, you won't ever work a day in your life, that whole analogy. And so, I was, it wasn't long before I was analysing crime, but the high-tech crime unit was just forming. And that's where people above me had realised that I had done one computing module in my statistics degree.
Highly qualified.
And they said, that's one more module than any one we've got in this police force. So me and a couple others had this unit that we were looking at computers back in the mid-noughties going, well, this is probably the future of crime, but what can we do with all this evidence? And we just, learnt as we went. We got given all these courses. I learned some really cool things. And that forensic side is really the basis now of so much criminal data and trying to evidence people, putting them behind bars.
So let's take it back to kid Jake. So kids always have these images in their head, don't they, of like, you know, the baddies and the good guys and the bank robbers. And there is something like engaging and seductive about it.
Of course.
What do you think it is as a kid that is enamored by breaking rules and being criminally minded?
I think it's testing boundaries. Right? If you think about kids, they're always testing boundaries with their mums, dads, parents, their family members and teachers, right? You want to see where those boundaries really are. And if you think a bit bigger than that, yes, potentially in crime. And so much of crime is in TV. And that's what I find fascinating. Can people learn how to break a system, cheat a system? And that to me was really, really interesting. But if we think about it, you know, we're not all murderers, but I bet you there are a lot of people listening and watching this that will have their top 10 shows on Netflix will be how to be a murderer and the likes of. People are fascinated by that. It doesn't mean they want to be a murderer. They're just seeing, you know, in their, say, dream of dreams, could they get away with it? Of course, they're not going to murder anyone. But there's that, can they cheat the police? And I think that comes down to me, that love of cheating a system. Of course, I'm never going to go and rob a bank. But there is that kind of dream that, could I get away with it? And if I were to, how could I? And so by learning in the police force how crime and criminals can be caught, I was really learning in my head, how would I do it? But at the same time, of course, I'm not going to.
Well, think like the bad guy, right?
Exactly.
And try to work it out.
I learned that. If you think like a criminal, you can then catch a criminal. And there were so many wonderful people that I learned that from, and it was great fun.
So tell us a bit, I mean, obviously for a layperson and outsider, you know, working in the high-tech crime unit, sounds insanely exciting. What did you see as the evolution in cybercrime from when you started to when you left? I mean, 14 years, you must have seen a lot.
Oh, it just went from physical crime, so burglary, people stealing stuff from houses, car theft, and stealing from a car. So suddenly turning into crime online. When I first started out, I hadn't thought of that being part of any sort of crime. But if we look at now the statistic from the government, it says that 40% of all crime is cybercrime and fraud.
Wow.
Which is a huge, huge amount. And I can tell you this, they haven't got 40% of police officers in the fraud and cybercrime teams.
Right.
Absolutely nowhere near it. Prosecution levels are extremely low. But then the tools are out there to kind of get away with it.
Why are prosecution levels so low?
Because software enables criminals to hide in these, say, digital shadows. They can get away with not just, say, not leaving, say, footprints behind them. They haven't even left breadcrumbs or anything behind them. When I was in the police, in the high-tech crime unit, the dark web came out. People started to use it, play with it, VPNs, cryptocurrencies. We saw a shift. I spent 3 months in the economic crime unit before I was in the high-tech crime unit, monitoring the flow of money, criminal money. It would go from bank account to a yacht, for example. Pretty easy to follow. Then it went into cryptocurrencies. And I remember we were called up by a student at Bournemouth University to my sergeant, and it was the first time I heard of it. And they said, what are you going to do about the dark web and cryptocurrencies when it comes to locating evidence? I'm writing a thesis. He couldn't answer it, and he asked all of us. And we just sat there thinking, okay, what is this? This technology is going to change the future, and it's going to change our jobs. And we're going to see crime change right in front of us. Because
you know, if you sit with Joe Tidy, for example, who we both know, what Joe will tell you is that the cyber criminals of today are incredible at breaching, and they have adopted AI faster than the good guys because they haven't got compliance and bureaucracy around it.
Yeah,
and the deployment after the breach is pretty violent, but their OPSEC is terrible. Their actual operational security is appalling, and they're relatively easily caught. And he always points to Julius, the guy who did the psychotherapy platform hack. Was that your experience as well? Were the criminals good at hiding their tracks?
So I was in the very early stages of, say, computer crime evolving. We realised quite early on we were catching the low-lying fruit, that low-hanging fruit that is leaving mistakes behind. Maybe, for example, and I hope no one's eating when I say this one, but I remember a laptop coming in, covered in blood inside the bag.
Oh my God.
And the officer in charge said, can you find the evidence on this computer? But don't worry, we've got most of the evidence. He's cut the guy up. And I'm thinking, well, surely you've got enough evidence. And they were like, no, protocol says, what can you get off this laptop and this hard drive? So I get my gloves on, I take out the hard drive, and I had to make a copy of it first. And of course, once you've imaged it, you've got this copy on your machine, you can go and have a look at it. And time sensitive, you're thinking, all right, let's have a look at the logs.
Right.
Let's see what was happening if the computer was on.
Yeah.
If it was off, great, then we'll go down a different route. But if it was on at the same time, maybe it can, correspond with anything that has been said already. Can it corroborate it? The computer was on. Okay. Oh, he's been on the internet near the time of the murder.
Okay.
Well, what is he doing on the internet at the time of a murder where this guy's chopped this guy up? Jeez. He'd been on Google. So, of course, okay, well, what's he been Googling? And it's all written there. He had Googled, how do I get rid of a dead body?
Wow.
This is what we were looking at a time when criminals weren't thinking forensically.
Yeah.
They weren't thinking, what am I leaving behind? That is, maybe a crime of passion. Maybe it's a crime without thinking. And therefore, they then think afterwards. That's when you're going to get that evidence. But I had to package that up into a little report and give it to them, say, this is what we've got. Yeah, they had enough on him anyway. But this is when I realized, look, we are catching those that are making those mistakes. But if we're looking forwards, and what we're realizing now is there are so many criminal groups out there that are able to completely hide. They never leave any evidence. It's a bit of a game for them. They're even toying with journalists, like chatting to the Joe Tidies of the world. I
mean, Joe seems to be like a honeypot now.
Absolutely.
They're trying to get him left, right and centre.
Because they're looking for kudos, bragging rights. It's not always about money. This is what I think a lot of people forget about. Yeah. The motivation behind a crime might not be money. That's what we tend to assume it is. Maybe the movies have done that. Sometimes it's just the fact is they want to show off to their friends, their peers, their other criminal groups to say, hey, that was us. And that's maybe why we've seen the retail industry hit so much, because we've got to think about it, that they're getting the headlines.
Right.
That creates the kudos, and then it gets the publicity.
And of course, they're leaking the Telegram chats and they're leaking the voice recordings. And I mean, they're dancing on the grave.
Yeah.
Right?
But I've also got to think that's kind of how I would have done it as well. If I go back to, say, my criminal mind or my younger self, I can see why that would be appealing and it would be interesting. But it's the brazen feel of how they're going about it, pretty much knowing full well they're not going to get caught.
And has the profile changed of the criminals over time? Do you think they're a different person, different type of people? Are they broader spectrum?
Yeah, but I think that comes down to, again, the motivation. So if the motivation is just clearly to show off to the other criminal groups and peers, then that's, say, spawning a new group there. But you'll always have the financially motivated criminal. How much can they make? But then greed gets in. And we've seen this in the movies. It also happens in real life as well. But knowing when to stop.
Right.
If you look at a lot of these criminal chats, they'll talk about, say, side hustles. But there'll always be a way of saying you must know when to stop because otherwise greed gets in and then you make your sloppy mistakes. So if you know how to, say, run the process, that's how they're doing it.
And I guess what's true is that, as their age changes, and obviously we spend a lot of time with young hackers, what I've noted is, or realised is that their motivations are quite varied. What I've seen is they kind of fall into four validated groups. One is fame.
Yeah.
They're quite frustrated that YouTubers who are untalented get really famous, and they're really talented and they think they should be famous. The second thing is intellectual recognition. Like the schools think they've plugged out, parents think they're wasting their time. No one recognizes how bright they are, and so they're quite intellectually snobbish, and they want to be known to be really bright. The third thing is top of the leaderboard. they've been winning since they were 5 years old. They've been winning at games. They've been winning XP points. They've been getting promoted. They've been getting into the next leagues. It's a real gaming culture.
Yeah.
And they want to be seen to be at the top of the leaderboard. And then the fourth thing is cash, right? They know they can make a ton of cash.
Yeah.
I've spoken to you about this in the past, but, I've come across a 13-year-old with $14 million in a bank account, an 8-year-old with $4 million in a bank account. I've got a 12-year-old right now who's making about 25 grand a month selling mods for games. Making 25 grand a month. They're making like unfathomable amounts of money, and they want more.
Wow.
Right? The fifth motivation, which is unvalidated and just my opinion, but based on having spent a lot of time with them, often they're neurodivergent. So at best, they were excluded from school, marginalized. At worst, they were victimized. And so there is a sense of vengeance in there. There is a sense of like taking down their perception of the bad guy. And as you know, no one thinks they're the bad guy. That's why you see a lot of hackers come together when there's like a gross offense happening online and they want to take down the bad guy. And also you see people trying to take down their perception of who the bad guy is. But that motivator is pretty strong. Do you recognize those in your experiences with the criminal world?
Yeah, and it's great that we are able to talk about them and find out their inner motivations. But it's a changing world. We're going to see, unfortunately, that YouTubers that are out there making tons of cash. But that's a way of the world. Ad revenue will go after numbers. And a lot of the people in this industry are, hidden underneath the hood, even though they are the engine of it all, and forgotten about it. But there is a space for everyone in this. And I think the more platforms there are out there, from the hacking games and so many others, where they can showcase what they can do and see a future, I think that's really important, to see that you can go with this. I never knew where I was going to go 20 odd years ago. I had no idea. I mean, some of the jobs didn't exist yet. But at least now we're able to think, okay, it could be, it could go in any direction. The inclusion of AI now is changing so much, but I think that for a positive thing as well. I think it's a positive future, and to be discussing it is a really positive action.
So what are the attack threats that we should be worried about now? I mean, you spend your life looking forensically at what cyber criminals are using. So what should we be worried about now?
So, I mean, the headline grabbing one is, of course, AI is going to change the landscape in cybercrime. I see it in a way that it's just another addition to the toolkit. Let's talk of AI in terms of automation. Fantastic. It's able to set up things in a flow that can automate anything for the criminal's benefit. That's impressive, but that's not too different to how software runs anyway. AI, machine learning, it's an area that's just getting more, sophisticated. And some people won't call it AI, but if we bring in the scale of it as well, that's how it can go so huge at scale. And it's a numbers game. If you think phishing emails, they say 3 to 5% phishing and smishing of a hit rate.
3 to 5%. Wow.
Most people are going to know that that's not from my bank.
I think that's pretty high, though, 3 to 5%. If you're a marketer and you send out a cold email campaign and you get 3% response
that's
rate,
marketing, though.
Pretty good. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the fear factor, right?
Yeah.
But if it says, if it comes in as, that is my bank, okay, that hit ratio goes up a little bit. And if it then says, did you click on a link last week when they sent out the pre-link from last week to their phone? Yeah, I did do that. And you're able to do this so much and at scale and learn from people. Profiling is such a big part of it. If I know that you clicked on that one that said, no, that wasn't me, when they text you to say, did you make that purchase from your bank? You only click no if it actually is the bank you're with. Otherwise, you just think, that's a fraudulent text. The amount of people that will text me and say, is this legit? And I say, well, who are you? Are you with that bank? They say, no. And I'll say, of course it's not. If it is, still don't click anything, but do a bit more research, right?
Yeah.
But people want to say, click, no, that wasn't me. Okay, the criminal now knows, okay, add to the profile, that's probably the bank they're with. And then when I ring them up, they're going to be saying, I'm calling from that bank.
Yeah.
More likely, it goes up, I don't know, 10, 15%, 20% hit rate. And so at scale, AI can just help on that.
So it's still social engineering, though, ultimately.
That's why I say it's just another tool in the toolkit. I don't think it's revolutionizing the way cybercrime works, But what it does do, it makes people talk about it. And for me, that's amazing. If we can then speak to anyone from a 12-year-old to an 82-year-old and say, look, what the tools are out there, how they are changing, let's talk about it. Let's think about it. If you get a phone call and it does sound like someone that you expect it to be, still challenge it. Still think about it. I was able to, a couple of years ago, with permission, steal the voice of a CEO of an estate agent. I stole his phone number through a SIM swap attack. I then stole his WhatsApp. I then sent a voice note from him with his voice to his financial director with a way of getting her to send £250 into my personal bank account. Ultimately, when I sent the voice note to when I got the money, that took 16 minutes.
No way.
I, of course, had to do the work to get his voice through the software. But his voice is out there on social media.
Sure. Like yours is now.
Yeah, of course. It's better with off-the-shelf tools now because you have to get that consent when you are making it.
Yeah.
But in the early days, and the darker tools out there, you don't need consent.
Yeah.
It's a bit of fun, but it's also a really interesting way of teaching people. That might not happen to them. In fact, the numbers are probably going to be quite low. But what it does do, it makes them think when they get that smishing text.
Yeah.
Because they're more likely to get a smishing text saying, I'm calling from your bank, than a voice note from their mum or their child saying, I'm in a panic state, can you send me some money?
But where does this go? Because I do feel like we're in a bit of a great awakening at the moment. So, my reference point is my mum and my dad, 85 and 83 years old. Still active, still in the world, on it. But they were oblivious, really, to this until the sphere went blue, right? Until CrowdStrike, Microsoft outage. And and now I think in public consciousness, there's one thing reading a headline saying, Jaguar Land Rover have lost, 1.5 billion or 2.2 billion. It's quite an esoteric, unmanageable number. Yeah. There's quite another thing when you can't buy your Percy Pigs off the shelves at Marks and Sparks, right? It's at that point that you go, or more importantly, you can't get your base food and vegetables from the co-op, right? Because then people feel it.
Yeah.
And then I think the consciousness is changing and people are becoming aware. We've seen, the deep fake attack in Hong Kong where the bank employee was scammed to transfer $25 million. I
love that one. That's my favorite headline of last year. I want friends like that.
Right. Yeah. Who will send you $25 million? Yeah. So where does it go though? Like is society now going to stop believing any visual and audio content? Is that where we're getting to?
No, but we are definitely all thinking about it a lot more, which is amazing. I don't think we were talking about it at this level, say 5 years ago. People were bored of being told, watch out for phishing emails. Watch
Prince
out.
of Nigeria's, you've won the lottery, that kind of...
Especially as I've been working with people and businesses tremendously over the last 7-8 years. My last 2 years, I was in the cybercrime team in the police force, going to local businesses to talk to them. And already I could see they were like, oh my God, I'm so bored of phishing emails. I know this. Yeah. Talking to them about, your password manager, let's talk about that, 2FA. Trying to get them to say, get to that stage of just say basics was challenging. But now we can at least make it a bit more exciting or being able to pull in the fact that, if this happens, you might not be able to get your Percy Pigs from Marks and Spencer's. Okay, it actually does impact me. And so every time I see a company get hit, of course, I feel for them, especially the IT team.
That's
hats
traumatic.
off to them. Yeah. They are working around the clock. But at the same time, I think, okay, this is actually going to help more people in the future. Yeah. Whether it helps that company or another company, it's going to have the silver lining. I like to think positively anyway. Yeah. I am always looking for the positive out of absolutely anything, but I always think that's going to help. Yeah. Marks and Spencer's co-op, Jaguar Land Rover, they've had a tremendously impactful year. But there are other companies, I've seen this in our own company, having inbound calls saying, let's talk about the next level of cybersecurity. Yeah. That base level that you were selling to us and we didn't want to purchase anymore? Yeah. Let's talk about the next layer. Yeah. Brilliant, because it's all about multi-layered. Yeah. And if you can get the decision makers at the top to think, okay, maybe we will spend that extra bit of cash or that extra bit of training, then we might just be able to withstand something.
Yeah,
the government are really worried about this. I mean, they're talking about having all their backups on pen and paper.
Yeah.
I think that's a bit tongue-in-cheek,
Yeah.
but it's making people think, okay, we've got to think differently.
And you spend your time experimenting with the latest technologies. Can you share a few things that you're seeing right now that you're excited by? What's your latest experimentation?
I mean, I love playing with deepfakes because it really gets people to just think about it. I don't think there's anything on the market that I would say is the best deepfake detection out there. I mean, there'll be a lot of people saying it, but at the same time, I think that's kind of like saying that something is unhackable.
Yeah.
It's a worrying space to be in, because if it's a perfect deepfake detection today, guess what? It won't be next week.
Sure.
But there are some really interesting tools out there to play with. I love playing with the latest things. Sora 2, right? It's great fun. OpenAI Sora 2.
Yeah.
It's AI slot, but it's interesting to make people realize you can make a copy of yourself and do some silly stuff.
So what have you done?
Well, I've created a channel where I just do silly things. I originally started with videos of my cat trying to kill me with a death stare. My mum thought it was real.
Right.
She thought, wow, how did you add those extra bits to the cat coming out of its eyes? But didn't you hurt your head when you fell on the floor? Mum, it's not me. Like, wow, okay. She's like, it has to be you. It sounds like you and looks like you. There are some amazing tools in Higgsfield. I'm loving playing with that. It's like a whole suite of amazing tools. But
what's Higgsfield?
Higgsfield is like a deep fake platform that pulls in Google VO3, WAN 2.2, all these incredible things where we could be sat here now and I could just include, a pint of Guinness or a can of Coca-Cola just from adding in the photo and then make that come to life. It looks very realistic. It's what's worrying the future of marketeers. But at the same time, if people believe what they are seeing, they are going to, say, walk into a new path. So the more we play with it, the more we question stuff.
And how are these going to be used by the bad guys?
So, as an experiment, I was given permission to do what I wanted with a CEO of a recruitment agency, local to me, down in Dorset. He said, you know what, yeah, you can do anything you want. I said, that is amazing, thank you so much. And he gave me access to his LinkedIn. And then from there, he said I could post what I wanted. Okay, I showed him what I was going to do first. But I said, please don't tell anyone what we're going to do. I'd already created a deepfake video of him that I was going to post on his LinkedIn. I said, don't go into the office. And I'm going to post this video. And it was him in his cycling gear saying that he was going to cycle to Australia. I don't know how long it takes to go to Australia.
Sounds like a long time, yeah.
But I imagine a long time. Within 24 hours, not only were there lots of comments like, well done, that's amazing, good on you. All of his team were ringing him up saying, how dare you go and tell the world before you tell us? Like, what are we going to do without you? He actually felt quite relieved that they were going to miss him.
Yeah.
But people started to offer money.
Right.
Where's the Just Giving page?
Yeah.
Can I give you money to the GoFundMe? There was an in-mail that came in saying, can we be the sole sponsor of this cycle to Australia? And 24 hours later, he said, you're going to have to turn it off. Everyone thinks that I'm actually going to go to Australia. Please, can we remove it? And can you go and tell everyone it's actually just you doing a social experiment? And I could have taken loads of money there. Yeah. Because people see it on his feed.
Of course.
Why would they not believe it? But that was just to prove that in the right setting, you might believe that. And as a business owner, you might be swayed to, say, doing whatever.
And are you aware that the cyber criminal gangs are deploying this now as a tactic and strategy? I mean,
well, we're seeing talk around North Koreans trying to infiltrate businesses, getting jobs. There are loads of remote jobs out there. Deep faking in real time, which is actually very easy now.
Is it?
So 2 years ago, I tried to pretend to be someone else in a Zoom call. Thing is, he's bold, the guy that I was trying.
Right.
And I'm not. So I bought a bold wig.
Amazing.
Because
you wanted one,
trying
basically.
to, well, I expensed that weirdly. Yeah. And I was trying to be it because I realized that when it does a swap face, it only does your face.
Yeah, that's right.
It doesn't do anything else. Yeah. So I had to add this bold head. But it looked horrendous. Yeah. It was so bad.
Did it work? No.
No. I didn't even try and start up the Zoom call because it would have just looked like an absolute joke.
Yeah.
However, I'm now able to do that. And I often start Teams calls with people at ESET as other people, just for fun.
Wow.
I'm now able to use my local computer. It's quick enough to use the virtual camera as someone else.
Wow.
You can even throw in their voice if you've been able to get around that as well.
And what are the behavioural changes you see of the people on the call when you do that? Because what happens to trust?
Well, they know never to trust me.
Right.
Because I'm always playing around with the latest stuff. I love hacking people with permission.
Yeah.
I mean, I can hack a WhatsApp account. That's always funny, by the way, because you get to see all the chat groups they're in. You don't get to see the chats.
Yeah.
But you get to see what the group names are when you do that. But I love testing whatever I can with permission, because then it teaches me. And I love to test what is out there. And criminals are doing the same thing. It's just they don't have the regulation or legislation. There is a point where I do have to stop or ring my lawyer and say, can I go any further? But the criminals will not care. And so I think by testing that, and to your point, it might erode trust in people if I turn up on a call as the boss and they go, wait a minute, really? Is that
It's such
Jake?
a fine line, Jake, though, isn't it? Because here you are like a walking ninja, right, with the skills, right? And the only thing that keeps you using your skills to be positive about society is your own ethical and moral code, right? And maybe fear of prison. But there's another Jake, isn't there, who's got the same curiosity and aptitude, but maybe not the same moral code. And it's quite easy for the other Jake to do all the things you've said and use their skills for making personal gain at other people's loss. And the question is, how do we be more Jake, right? Because, we know each other, I think your moral code is outstanding and it's clearly exhibited in the work that you do. There's just lots of people who are not going to be like that because of lots of reasons, by the way, lack of guidance, not having a mum to say, well, you're not going to be a bank robber, be a cop. So where does that take us? I mean...
And that's a great point. And I don't think I actually really know the full answer to that because I think everyone is individual here. Yeah. But you can just make it more accessible. You can give more paths into the industry.
Okay.
There's so many areas in cybersecurity, so many. And people often ask me my path. I don't think I've met many other people that have got the same path because everyone's got a different in there. But
you are an anomaly. And let's talk about the industry a little bit because, we were talking off camera that, the organization you work for has basically created a platform of space for you, or a space for you to do what you love doing. And it works for them and it works for you. And there aren't really any other roles in any other cyber companies where I see like that. So, and that's kudos to them and you for creating that. And it obviously works. But, there aren't that many pathways, actually. If you look at the numbers, there are 5.5 million people working in cyber globally. There are 4.8 million unfilled jobs, which sounds a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone believes that number because you go and speak to talent and, we work now with government programs across 5 different countries where we're looking at getting young Gen Z gamer hackers into the industry. And on the one hand, you'll hear we need the talent. You go and speak to the youngsters and the feedback you'll get is, number one, it's the least cool industry in the planet because it's represented by middle-aged white men and they speak in complicated language and they've not made it something aspirational. So, and we had one of our young hackers sit in front of a room full of, people in cybersecurity industry in America and say to them, you are irrelevant to me because you don't speak my language. So the industry hasn't done a brilliant job of marketing itself.
Yeah, that's a shame.
And the second thing is just the inherent barriers. I was just at a university the other day, the head of computer science there, right? She's the president of the Computer Science Society. She has 500 undergrads in computer science there. And they're all saying it is impossible to get a job because people expect of us to have government compliance certificates, which are really expensive and take 2 years. They expect us to have 2 years work experience, but we're graduates from university. They expect us to, have jumped through a million different hoops and real world experience. So the industry has put up all these barriers. I think 99 other Jakes wouldn't have got a job.
Yeah. And that's a real shame to hear this. I guess my passion for it is what I'm trying to instill in so many others. Don't give up on that passion. Because whether you're into any industry, I think go for it. Keep going. That's what my mum was saying to me. It doesn't matter what you do, but if you love it, it will come. This is the whole manifestation that I think a lot of people do believe in now. And I love that. I didn't even think of that word 20 years ago. But I look back and I realize it is. So being positive and pushing for it, I think it is starting to change. Good. Because soon those middle-aged white people that you'll say that might be completely alien to the next generation, that next generation are getting in and taking those roles and understanding it and realizing, actually, we do need to change it slightly. And I am seeing more people at least enjoy what they do. Of course, there are going to be people that hate what they do in any industry. And every industry is going to be stressful. But at least you can love it. I don't necessarily talk to a lot of people who say go into finance because they love finance. No. Or whatever their industry is. But I still do talk to people who have gone into cybersecurity because they love cybersecurity.
I agree with that. And there's definitely like the lovers of it. But, finance is an interesting comparison, actually. So in the 1950s, like finance was really boring. It was for clerks. And it would be like abacus managers and, and it was really not seen as salubrious whatsoever. But it's quite interesting. 1972, US financial markets deregulate. They unpeg the dollar. Suddenly, globalization kicks in. Suddenly, you've got investment banking quotation as being something as the epicenter of international trade. It's where political decisions are being made. And suddenly people are looking and going, wow, this is an amazing career. Even if counting numbers doesn't sound that exciting, I'm going to have wealth creation opportunities, amazing careers. We're going to influence big organizations. So you start to get the English graduates from Oxford University deciding to go into finance. And finance went from, bean counters to the Wolf of Wall Street. Right, the image changed, didn't it? It suddenly made movies about Gordon Gekko and it became the thing. And there's Wall Street and there's, the city and all these kind of incredible, ridiculous branding. And in a way, you could look at tech in the 2000s. IT was really geeky and not cool. And then suddenly it was beanbags and Meta and Google and, free lunches. And now it's AI, right? Whatever the question is, the answer is AI. Yeah. I mean, I'm speaking to schools right now and they're just looking at me going, how do we teach AI? Yeah. Ask AI. But, good point. But maybe the next wave is cyber. And maybe the wave is to make cyber seem aspirational and cool and inclusive.
But not just that. I think we are seeing a new generation of independent people en masse.
Right.
So
right, that's interesting. Okay.
Where, say, 20 years ago, it would have been, which industry do you want to be in? And go and find those companies and go join them. Yeah. Whereas now I'm seeing people being so inspirational within. Maybe it's to do with the whole influencer, say, industry. They can go and do it themselves. And I love seeing a company starting from an idea. And let them do it themselves. I keep reading stats that people want to work for themselves rather than work for someone else. I'm not. I love being part of a big company. Yeah. It's actually something that, actually in the police force, I felt part of a family. Yeah. And ESA, I generally do feel like I'm part of a family and I want to be there for many, many years. Yeah. But noted for the notes, by the way. I've been saying that for years. But if there are so many people that want to do that solo, then I take my hat off to them. Yeah. And I hope they get that backing in any form because people will see that passion and they'll buy into that. We say people buy from people. Let them start in that position. Yeah, go and learn what they can. There will be companies out there that you don't have to jump through those hoops to get the experience. Yeah. But you don't necessarily need to get too much experience because you don't want to be molded too much. If you are, say, the inspirational character yourself, I am fascinated with the amount of young people that I see on LinkedIn with their own, say, ideas that they've got that no one else has ever thought of. Yeah. Or no one thinks that's going to make money. But that's not always the idea or end goal for everyone. Yeah. It's just because they want to make a difference. And that's where I'm hopefully we're seeing
Let's dig into the young ones a little bit. You have kids, right?
I do.
How old are they?
So 10 and 13.
10 and 13. Okay, so we're in and around the same vibes. Tell me what you're seeing about them and their friends' social behaviors and their use of technology and gaming and hacking. Well, although they're in Dorset, so they're probably surfing and living incredibly healthy lives.
Yeah, we do have lovely beaches. Tech is part of their lives every day, like it is for the majority of people, even more so for young people, I'd imagine, these days. I'm trying to tell them what I do and about cybersecurity. They're not bothered. But I'm not going to force them into it. I want them to go in, again, like my mum said to me, I want them to go into things that they absolutely love. I'll always teach them about tech. But it is a changing world, of course, for them. But I want to make sure that they understand what they are playing with. What I actually say to other parents is, for example, whenever your child gets an app, download the same app.
Right.
And then they won't want to look at the settings. Why don't you look at the settings, and then you can teach them the bit that they probably haven't learned. You might actually find out something cool about that app. So Snapchat, for example, no parent wants to play with it. Roblox, they're thinking absolutely no way are they going to play on any of the games. But actually, if you go and play around with them, first of all, it's just like getting excited with your child about anything. If they were to say to you, hey, look at this book I'm reading, you'd be like, oh, amazing, tell me about it. But so many parents might go, oh, I don't care what game you're playing. 99 Nights in the Forest, for example, on Roblox.
Last night, thank you very much. Yeah. Brain rots.
As soon as you go, okay, tell me about it, you see their face light up.
Yeah.
And then once you've got them, you then go, hey, have you checked out this setting? Wow. Okay, Dad's suddenly in on it. Yeah, we're never going to be cool as parents. I get that.
So I think, Jake, you've touched on it here, and we get asked this a lot. So, we've done this university-reviewed research that looks at the behaviours that kids are developing gaming and the skill sets they're developing. So to give you some data points on that, 3.2 billion gamers in the world. Yeah. Right? 93% of Gen Z game. They spend on average 55 minutes a day on TikTok. They spend 114 minutes a day gaming. Yeah. And when you break down the gaming usage, you can see that there's behavioral stuff that they develop. So some kids play like wham bam explosion games like Call of Duty. Great for pressure under intensity, great for leadership, great for teamwork, great for imagining and predicting what someone's going to do next. Other people will play like long-term creative games like Minecraft and Roblox, brilliant for creating worlds, brilliant for creating games. 99 Nights in a Forest is created by another player, right? Brain Rots, which is the one that currently has 17 million kids a day on it. It's in 6-7, all this kind of madness. Whole new language created by a Brazilian guy. So, and these are different skill sets. And then our analysis shows that actually the modifications that the kids are doing on the game, so the way they're hacking the games, creating aimbots on Call of Duty or breaking into each other's accounts or doxing each other, these are all precursors to cybersecurity skill sets, and they can either be used for bad Jake or good Jake. Yeah. And let's be good Jake, not bad Jake. And so then what happens is when we share this, I often after every speech, there'll be 20 panicked parents in front of me. And they'll be going, oh my God, you've just described little Johnny, my son, who's upstairs in his bedroom. And the story I give them is the same, which is when we were kids, I grew up in central London, and my parents always said, if you're going to go to the playground, don't go and speak to the drug dealer, and don't get in the car with the middle-aged white man and the bag of sweets. Stranger danger. And those are the guidelines. But we're not giving those guidelines to our kids in the gaming space, which is where they're identified. And get in there and do it with them. I play with my kids all the time. And by the way, it's an awesome family moment. Yeah. It's so cool. This is what they've done on Brain Rots, where they've hacked Brain Rots by... Brain Rots, basically, you collect a load of high perceived value items and you hide them in your base, and then your people you're playing with come and steal them from your base. So what my kids have done is they've gone and hid them on my account in my base, and I'm not friends with kids, obviously. Yeah. I'm friends with my kids. Yeah. So because I'm not friends with the other kids, they can't get to my base. Yeah. So, and I come in and they keep saying, Papa, you're a trillionaire. And I'm like, brilliant, I'm a trillionaire. Because I've got, and that is how you engage. You get in there, you play with them, you guide them a little bit. Yeah. Luciano, my son, last night was befriended by a guy he didn't know. And Luce said yes. And I said no. Yeah. Luce, think about it. If a guy came up to you in the street and said, get into my car, are you going to go do it? Yeah. No, of course not. There you go. Yeah. So I think you've got to be in there. You've got to play with them. You've got to, and that's great for, by the way, familial relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the future. But I think it comes down to time, or I think a lot of people are scared of what it is. Yeah. It's the unknown. Yeah. It's the really not knowing much about it. Yeah. There tends to be a technophobe generation.
Is that the parents?
I think so. Of a generation where they don't necessarily completely understand it, and they're maybe worried that the young generations are going to run away with it. But at a time when we've got AI in the press every day, isn't it a great time to all learn it together? Totally. It's about to completely be flipped on its head when it comes to schoolwork.
Totally.
So all the kids are asking, why can't we just get AI to do it? Why not? Why not? You're allowed to use it. Why can't I?
Yeah.
And it's the whole concept of we need to learn how to do math first before you get the calculator.
Yeah.
You'll get it.
Yeah.
That calculator's coming.
Yeah.
But please, let's just at least learn our times table first in our head.
So we've been approached by unnamed university who suspect, and this is like, a very well-known establishment, I suspect that the maths undergrads, who are top 1% in the world, are all using the LLMs to do the math. And they're saying this is a fundamental challenge to our idea of what critical analysis is. Yeah. And actually no one knows the answer.
Yeah.
No one knows the answer. So we're bringing, actually, maybe you should be involved in this, actually. Oh, that's a great idea. We're bringing in a bunch of young Gen Zers to hack this university's exam systems and on invitation and interview systems. Because what they're finding is that students are doing Zoom interviews and they're deep fakes, using LLMs, it's pre-recorded, blah, 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 and the universities are miles away from being able to detect it. So I think there's a paradigmic shift in all of this, and people don't know the playbook.
Yeah, it's 100% happening. It's changing right in front of our eyes. It's even more of a technological change than when the World Wide Web came out and flipped every industry on its head in the early 90s. This is something that no one knows what's going to happen. Of course, people are scared of it, but I think we need to be working with it. If our kids are going to be working with it, because they've got the advantage of seeing a goal of how AI can, say, change an outcome in the short term for them, they're equally at the same time going to learn the long-term goals. But if the older generations are so scared to use it, then that's a worrying shift that you put between those generations.
So how are you doing it with your kids?
So we don't Google stuff anymore.
Yeah.
We actually use a variety of different AI chatbots to go and search for things. Yeah. Whether that be a question that my kids might ask me.
Yeah.
Well, then together look at the answers through a chatbot, which, like young kids enjoy, it hasn't got the adverts at the start on Google. You haven't got to then click through to a link that might actually have a load of rubbish, and you still can't find where you actually want the answer.
It's definitely more efficient.
It's way more efficient, and that's what kids are brilliant at, knowing how to efficiently use their time. People always say, they're always, they haven't got attention span. Actually, they're just more efficient than us. And let's face it, if we had the access to that when we were kids, we would use it too. Yeah. So we can't go and blame them because it's basically in us as well. Little things last night, my son liked the idea of an image of a Lamborghini, but he wanted to change the colour of it so it would match the other colours of his apps on his mobile phone. Brilliant. So we used a chatbot to go and quickly change that. Previously, I would have used Photoshop for that, but it was quicker. But then you can go one step further. My daughter wanted to find out the times at the cinema. Go and use a chatbot to find that and to see how that fits is so much easier. But if you add in, say, agentic AI, so everyone's talking about how can we create these agents that can do more for us, if that's where it's going, at least we're starting to learn it now. Yeah. So I even say to everyone else, don't bother search engine searching for your thing, so Google and the likes of. Use a chatbot, whether that's any particular one that you like, or at the early stages, beta test it. Yeah. So find out which one works for you. And that's, I think, one of the little tips I give to other parents, because that's surely the future for them.
So the way I think about it is that, AI is being used in the mass for the most basic thing. And people are just automating execution. But they're automating a lot of mediocrity. And just look at LinkedIn, right? If you just read LinkedIn, like all these posts now are like, you can see people are writing them and they all sound the same. And they've all got the same constructs. I mean, it's like banal, honestly. It's like banal. When I was last renting a car, it really made me think about the issues facing cybersecurity. I mean, really ludicrous. But what's happening is they're not putting the thought in. So people are automating mediocrity. And if you automate mediocrity, you just get mass mediocrity. But if you automate brilliance, if you get a brilliant concept, if you get people to think conceptually, and then you automate the execution of that, you're going to get brilliant outcomes. And I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I sit with my daughter, for example. And the other day we went for a suitably overpriced coffee in West London, and we started drawing pictures in the top of the foam, cappuccino, whatever, usual stuff. And she'd just come back from Amsterdam, and she had been to a museum there with her grandfather, and she had seen The Night's Watch by Rembrandt. And she goes, "Can we draw the Night's Watch in the top of a coffee?" And I was like, "That's a complex." Yeah. That's 25 people in a painting. So what I did is I took a photo of the coffee, and I uploaded it to ChatGPT, and I said, "Please, can you draw the Night's Watch in it?" And it was amazing. Yeah. So then her brain exploded. And then she was like, "Okay, well, let's do this." And we took a photo of the two of us together. And then she goes, "Okay, make this photo of the two of us as if it was done by Picasso." And then, okay, now I want to see it done by Dali. Yeah. And then I want to see it done by Rembrandt. And then I said, "Well, do you know who Van Gogh is?" Yeah. And she was like, "Oh, I can't remember." Okay, well, let's look at what it looks like Van Gogh. And then suddenly she has an idea, right? Yeah. She can now express and see this idea in so many different creative genres. Yeah. And then what came after that is we were actually driving across Europe in the summer, and they wanted to be on their iPads, and I was driving me crazy. So I said, "Okay, I'll tell you what you can do. I want you to tell me a story. Create a story." So my daughter Gisela, she's like, "Okay, well, I'm in the Amazon forest and I've got my two brothers and our two dogs with us." I was like, "Okay, what kind of story is it?" It's an adventure story." "Okay, what are you doing?" "Well, we're trying to get to the Mount Tutamen or what." She's making all this stuff up. And I said, "Okay, and what kind of vibe? What kind of genre is it?" She's like, "Okay, like Enid Blyton." So we prompted ChatGPT, and it wrote the first chapter of this story. Yeah. And then she's reading it. She's like, "Oh, no. But they haven't put a coat on the dog. The dog needs a coat." So she's re-prompting the story. And then she's actually, "I don't want it to be like Enid Blyton. I want it to be like Roald Dahl." Yeah. And suddenly she is owning the idea. Yeah. And she's having it expressed in different ways. And I think for me, that is the moment where you can take human creativity and innovation and concepts, which is what we're so good at, and then you can use AI to provide executional elements to test your thoughts and test your ideas. And if we can get the kids to start using it in that way and not being lazy, that's not lazy. Yeah. That's productive.
And that is why I see so many similarities with when the World Wide Web came out, say 92, because people would think it's going to take jobs. In fact, it just expanded everything. Right. It made people think differently. Right. It gave people the ability to work from home, to have their own jobs, their side hustles. Companies expanded. Everything became easier. We created jobs purely on that. And that's how I see the similarities now. Yeah. Again, there's got to be some positivity in that. It's just going to expand it. I'm seeing loads of people playing around with tools that they would never have played with before. For example, an AI app that can create an app for them or their website for them in just, say, natural processing language to be able to create something that's not going to go mass market, but it's going to just add to, say, their Etsy account or whatever they're creating. That's brilliant productivity. And if you can get creative with it, because people are always worried that it's going to take creativity, to your point, it's exacerbating that creativity and making it come to life.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I know you always are working on very cool projects. Is there anything you can tell us about at the moment that would blow our minds?
So I've been fascinated with trying to get into a company as an insider. I've always wanted to break into a company, get permission to see if I can get in there. And it's been relatively challenging. I've done the typical just trying to break through the first barriers, dressing up as delivery drivers or whatever. But it doesn't get you actually into the business. And I've seen the North Koreans have been attempting to be other people to actually get roles in locations. And over the last couple of years, I've been trying to perfect that, say, real-time Zoom call, deepfake face swap. And a couple of years ago, it wasn't great. Last year, it started to get a bit better. But now I've seen the technology is available and it is possible to be someone else. So I came up with the idea that I wanted to put that to a test. The theory is brilliant. I could go and talk about that on stage, and I love to tell a story, but if I'm doing it about someone else, I think people will go, "Yeah, I've heard this." Yeah. So I thought I've got to test it. Yeah. So there was a company I went up to a couple of years ago, an IT firm, international, and I asked them if I could attempt to go for a job with them as someone else, as a social experiment. And they said, yes. I said, let's not tell anyone else in the company, but it's just going to be me and you that know about it. And I did everything with AI. So I created a CV. I created a backstory. I thought I'd be able to pretend to be a teacher before I've started in this IT. It was an IT sales role. So we came up, me and ChatGPT and other tools, that I had a 14-year background in teaching. I thought that would be a nice way of, say, moving into this. And then I went to some face swapping technology, using a virtual camera, using
What's a virtual camera?
So a virtual camera is the feed that will go onto a Zoom call that's with anything that you've edited. So I've stuck another face on top of my face.
Yeah, like a filter.
Yep, exactly like a filter. Yeah. That I can move around with and looks like it is this other person. That I also created a fake passport, so my identity that would look correct. I created a fake LinkedIn that went with it, and then applied for the job, and I got my first interview. So I was super nervous.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you're basically masquerading.
Not only was it my first interview in a long, long time, I had to remember my backstory. It's also an interview, but I wanted it to work. What would I say if they noticed straight away that I'm not who I say I am?
In a way, that's an interesting experiment in itself. How would they react?
Absolutely. And it starts up and it all goes really well. Straight away, it's not any questions about what I look like. And what I did find is my camera is such good quality. I had to reduce the pixel
No
size
way.
because it was throwing it out in 4K.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I've got to really reduce that screen resolution.
And what was your persona?
That I was another guy.
You're a guy, okay.
With there's 14 years experience as a teacher, but I've done a little bit
British
in IT. British guy.
So British white guy.
So I didn't change the voice. I went with my voice because I thought they don't know my voice. So why not say reduce one element of the tech and just be someone else?
And visually you looked...
Visually completely as someone else. Absolutely, completely different to me. Filmed the whole thing. I was even able to show other people afterwards that this isn't me. And people looked at it and thought, it's got to be you. It's got to be a real person.
Yeah.
I said, no, that person. In fact, I created that face using AI, so that person doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I blurred the background,
Yeah.
just to add something that it might look genuine.
Yeah.
And I went for the job. And the first interview, which I'd forgotten what it would be like. It was HR and someone that would work in the team.
Amazing.
But they were asking me questions about me. They weren't asking about the job. Even though I had AI set up to listen to the questions
and give you live answers
in real time, I didn't need to use that at that point. But I got a second interview. Incredible. And they then asked me to write a presentation.
Oh my God.
Right. I then went to another agent to generate this presentation.
Was it good?
It was so good.
You should have taken the job.
They even said
Really?
in the interview, this is one of the best presentations we've seen at this stage of an interview ever.
And how much of your own intellect did you put into it?
Not much.
Really?
But to a point where I forgot the job that I was working in. They were asking me about that job and about the company.
And you forgot what it was?
I forgot because I'd taken away the CV at that stage.
Yeah.
I had my other AI tool up there listening to questions, of which the AI tool is trying to throw out bits. I'm trying to look to the side and read other bits at the same time. I start using the gift of the gab of just speaking my way through it. But at this point, they then say, you're really going to fit in here. Because I started saying...
Because we're all deepfakes too?
Well, I would love that. He even mentions in there, AI's everywhere at the moment. And I nearly said, it's right in front of your face.
I mean, literally,
but I just
surrounded,
said, yes, it really is. I was saying that I love the family feel of the teaching, because I brought in the family feel of the police force. If you lie slightly close to the truth...
The 14 years, right? The same amount of time.
That's why I did that. Yeah. So... look, I didn't really want to leave teaching, but I felt I had to go into the private world. It was the right time. They were like, wow, we can teach you all these other skills, but the soft skills you've got with people, that's going to really work well in IT sales. I was like, yeah, brilliant. So the second interview goes so well. I then wait nervously for a couple more days. I wasn't nervous for the second interview, by the way.
Right.
I'd really got into it. I was like, great.
And you like the guy you'd created.
Although,
he seems like a great guy.
Those two people weren't. When it started up again, it was two different people this time. But I realised that I think the software's working. My whole backstory was going to be right. And they offered me the job.
No.
I ring the CEO and say, you won't believe this. And he went, I probably will, but go on. He says, I tell him that they've offered me the job. He says he's heard about me because they've been discussing how they've met online. This nice guy who's got this teaching background. We've never had someone, they said, ironically, at this age go for that level of job.
Oh, right.
Because they liked that I was a bit older.
Humble, yeah.
But I was doing it because I wanted the job and I wanted the family feel of a lovely company. I kept saying how I just want to go for a place where people don't leave.
Yeah.
I want people to, and they say, oh, people stay here for years.
Yeah,
and
you're
they
hitting
love
all
that,
the talking points, aren't you? Yeah.
And I realized, you can do this. And they would have offered me the job, given me the job, sent me out the laptop, a remote job. And that's what these criminals are doing so damn well.
Yeah.
And I do take my hat off to them. But I wanted to try that.
Yeah.
And I put that all together. And I've been extremely excited and surprised about it. But it just proves that a little bit of confidence, a little bit of technology, know-how and curiosity, you can just get straight in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where the world becomes, it's going to have to reevaluate so many things it sees in front of it. Because, you hear stories, and of course, North Korean IT workers, but, the subset of that is there's a lot of gig jobbers who are doing 3 or 4 full-time jobs at the same time.
Well, that is what I wanted to do. I wanted to carry on, see how many I could get.
Yeah.
And I can see how that would
think
work.
of the wealth people can create just by doing that. Particularly, and also, then there's a really esoteric question, which is like, well, is that wrong?
Yeah.
Because, when you're not paying people for time, you're paying people for output.
Yes.
So if actually one person can work across 5 companies as a software engineer, but he's created a whole load of LLMs, he or she has created a whole load of LLMs and automations, and he can do all the internal meetings because he's sending his note taker to every meeting, and then he can.
It got me thinking like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, what is the paradigm challenge here? Is the paradigm challenge like, oh, it's so deceptive, someone's doing this across 5 companies? Or is it, well, actually companies need to rethink what an employee looks like?
Absolutely.
And that, that's a big.
And the companies I'm speaking to about this threat, in fact, I went to speak to a huge supermarket about this, and they instantly stopped and listened and went, we haven't even thought about this because we have so many remote jobs. I say, how many of them do you meet in person? They say, well, we can't. Half of them aren't in the country. We're not going to meet them all.
I think consultants.
Yeah.
Think how many professional service consulting in the UK, I can't remember the data, but we're a majority services led nation, right? And there's a lot of professional services consulting, and that is a lot of thing that is and
they will work among separate companies at once. It's part of their mantra.
What an amazing story! So looking forward for that breaking and hearing the news. Jake, it's been awesome to have you here.
Oh, thank you.
What I love is you have like an incredibly optimistic enthusiasm for this world. I think there's another version of someone sitting here who's saying, oh my God, like we're all under threat and look at everything that's possible. But, you have to innately believe in human nature and creativity and innovation. I always say that, without a hacking mindset, we'd be riding a horse to work or reading by candlelight or heating ourselves by coal.
Great point.
And in the end, it is base human creativity and it's really exciting. So we've got to make sure that, for every one of good Jakes, there aren't 9 bad Jakes, and provide a pathway for them to the right path. But thanks so much for sharing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a great time right now, and it's an exciting time.
You can catch Jake on the BBC, Sky News, all over the cross media. You're doing a brilliant job.
Thank you.
Nice one.